what you're talking about is when you come into a co-write, when you're
Yes,
getting ready to
yes.
sit down with somebody else as a writer, you don't want to be empty-handed, just relying on them to have the ideas. You want to have some ready too.
Exactly.
Okay.
And, you never know. I mean, sometimes you don't even use those ideas, which actually
Right.
happened in our case. But I will say, coming in with those ideas led to conversations that led to the idea that we ended up writing about. So, everything works out the way that it's meant to.
Hey guys, my name is Jeff McMahon, and I play the piano for people. I've played on some big records, played on some big stages, and I've played with some big stars. Big or small, they're all the same. Taking someone with a dream, playing their song, and trying to get them further up the ladder. So that's what we'll do here. Have a conversation, maybe shine a light, and play some music. And I'll be on piano. This is McMahon on keys. Okay, so Christie Huff,
Yes.
welcome back to Nashville.
Thank you. Feels good to be here.
I've worn you out trying to figure out how to put all of this together. And we were talking about how we met because we did the Freedom Jam
Yes.
together in Missouri,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
I was playing with Taylor Hughes. You were there. Also, both of you opening for Morgan Miles, who a lot of
Yes.
people know from The Voice. And I remember because I was watching you walk around, and I, for some reason, was thinking, Christie Huff, Christie Huff, Christie Huff. I'm supposed to know Christie Huff. Fortunately, I connected you to Gabrielle Metz, who's actually been on the podcast.
Yeah, Gabrielle's like one of my best friends. So
Yeah, because I called her. I was like, why do I know this name?
yeah.
So, Gabrielle, you're here. You're in LA.
Yes.
And today you're here.
And today I'm here at where are we?
We're upstairs at McNamara's Irish Pub.
McNamara's. Okay, that's what it was. I was like, is it McMahon too?
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
that would make sense.
No. McNamara's Irish Pub is a local Irish restaurant here in Nashville. And the upstairs, where we are presently, is Turk's Lounge, which is the writer's room that he hosts singers and songwriters.
It's a nice space.
Yeah.
Nice and warm. Yeah.
We're gonna get you hooked up.
Yes, I know. I'm like,
We're gonna get
anywhere
you
in
hooked
Nashville where they have music and they need somebody to play, I'm like, I want to play. Here I am.
Well, okay, so let's just jump straight off with that because I was curious when we were in Missouri. Actually, one of the things that impressed me about you when we met was you operate out of Nashville, you operate out of LA, you did not have an entourage, you were not there with a band, you did not have a road manager, you were there on your own, and I assume you got there on your own, put all that together.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly. Yes. You're exactly correct. I am like my own team. I think a lot of people see artists, and independent artists can mean a lot of different things. An independent artist can mean, I don't have a label, but I still have a manager and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
I'm as independent as the word gets. I don't have a manager, don't have a publicist anymore. So I work with publicists off and on.
Sure.
I don't have a booking agent, any of that. All of I work with different musicians because I do go back and forth between LA and Nashville. So I actually have like an LA band and a Nashville band, and then I also play acoustic. So I am kind of all over the place and, am constantly finding opportunities. And Freedom Jam, for instance, like I've known Brian, Judy, who, put together Freedom Jam. We knew each other on Instagram, and I just kind of like shoot my shot, slid into his DMs
Right.
and was like, hey, like, I love, like what your festival stands for. If you ever need any other, artists to come, I'd love to perform at Freedom Jam sometime.
Right.
And, then we connected because I've done some like live streams and things like that with him. So we connected, and then he was like, yeah, come on out to Missouri. And, if you can play acoustic and all that kind of stuff. So that was great because, traveling with a band and playing with a band is always a lot of fun.
Right.
But I don't, like you said too, I don't have a tour manager. So when I do have a band, I'm the tour manager. So, it's a little different, making sure that everybody's okay. So playing acoustic is kind of nice because I go where I want, when I want. And, it's kind of not easier, but, I don't have to worry about other people. So it's nice.
Well, it's easier in that regard now, and you don't have to navigate the band.
Yes, and take care of them.
Now, separately of that, though, because I can't imagine how you navigate this, you navigate two bands.
Yeah.
I mean,
yes.
There's this other thing that I don't know. We'll get to that. But but you've got players in Nashville that you work with. You've got players in LA that you work with.
Yes.
I guess Missouri was too far in the middle. You couldn't decide which guys to.
Yes. Well, in Missouri, Brian, I was like, I can bring my band out, or if you want. And he was like, no, like acoustic's great. So I was like, awesome. I'll take it. And if we had done, if I had, needed to bring a band, I would have brought my Nashville band, because then we would have just driven, from Nashville to Missouri. It's just, geographically, it would have made more sense.
Right.
So that's kind of what I do. Like, for instance, this last summer I've been touring a lot, and I did a festival in Wisconsin, and I toured from Nashville to Wisconsin and back with my band, and I used that band because of geographical, how it just made more sense that way.
Right.
And then I did another festival in Seattle, and I used a mixture actually of both my LA and Nashville band, because my drummer in LA or my drummer in Nashville can fly for free. So he flew to Nashville. I flew out, or to Seattle. I flew out my LA bassist, and then we actually played with my drummer's brother, who lives in Portland, who's a guitar player. So it's a lot of organizing people.
I can't even imagine the planning that's involved. I mean, I'm leaving actually after this interview. I'm going on the road with Chris Cagle with Jonathan, who's in the wings. Helping
behind
us out
the scenes.
with this interview. And I don't know, he probably plans better than I do, but I know that if I get on the right bus at 3:00, I will wind up wherever I need to be. And whoever else is on the bus, we will play together. And that will be fine. I can't even imagine having to juggle all of those logistics. And a lot of people probably would assume. I mean, I know in Nashville, when I hear of an artist like yourself doing a lot of acoustic things, it's because they maybe have 2 or 3 releases. They do a lot of writers' nights, which you probably do.
Yeah.
I mean, at least here. But they're doing that kind of instead of.
Yeah.
And if anybody looks you up, I mean, you've got 15, 16, 17 releases, music videos attached to a lot of it, full band performances, overseas touring. I mean, you really do kind of draw whatever sword you can use at the moment to further your career.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's what it looks like.
Well, exactly. I kind of when I talk to people who, aren't in this industry, and they are like, oh, like, what is it like? And how long, the biggest question, how long are you going to be doing this for? And, I'm kind of like, my whole thing, I've been doing this for 10 years.
Right.
I'm just throwing darts, kind of seeing what sticks in different areas. And that's, it's not that I don't have a manager or a team, because it's not really out of want, but it's also, I've had people approach me, but people approaching you, it's got to be the right fit. It's got to make sense, right? I don't want to just, I had a situation when I was first, living in LA, when I first moved out there, where I was signed to a manager, and luckily they didn't do anything to hurt my career, but they didn't do anything to help my career. So then after that experience, I've been very cautious with things like that, and have.
Okay. Now you said they didn't do anything to help your career. Now, I've having been in Nashville. I have been very aware of some instances where it takes a while before you see the payoff of things. Now, I'm not challenging what you're suggesting, but what were you evaluating to determine they're not helping me?
Well, there were a lot of things that happened in this situation. He was a part of a management company with his wife. And when I signed it, I signed the contract with that information. Come to find out that he was actually divorcing his wife, and that the company that had all this, these opportunities belonged to her and not him. So there was that. So kind of a little bit of dishonesty.
Sure.
Because I was like, you're not even upfront. I'm putting all of this trust into you, and honestly, what's attached to you.
Right.
I'm not just gonna give it to, give this much power to just anybody.
Sure.
So that was a big thing. Another thing was, I am a big believer in following your instinct, whether it's right or not. My instinct has brought me to where I am. And I think it's led me to just kind of, well, if this person's not going to do something for me, then I just got to do it myself. And my instinct in that situation, he was like, oh yeah, just wait. Don't get a band together. Just wait. And, I was playing around acoustic a lot around LA.
Right.
And I was like, I really want to get a band together. And you know how it is in LA and Nashville, but especially LA too, where it's like, getting a band together and playing a show, that's just the beginning. That doesn't mean anything,
Right.
And yeah, I'm going to fall on my feet at first. That's what happens. My first band show is not going to be amazing. My first people who I find isn't going to be the ones probably, and what I didn't like about that situation is that he was like, stop, just wait, but wasn't offering, but because this is what you should be doing. An
alternative.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Don't do this instead. Right.
It was just like, oh, just, keep playing acoustic, but not even like, okay, but how should I do it differently? Because obviously what I'm doing just isn't pushing me to where I want to go. So my instinct was, I didn't even fire him. I was just like, okay, like, if you don't want me to do that, like, I'm just going to do it. And I invited him to shows and things, and then things just kind of fizzled out.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, whatever. So then since then, I've been very cautious of, whoever I work with, I want to make sure that, like, because, as artists in this industry, like, I don't know everything, obviously. But, I mean, now I've been doing it for 10 years, and I feel like I've learned a lot. And I want to give myself credit in what I do know, and obviously not be like a know-it-all and be like, I know other things, but still give myself credit in the things that I've learned along the way, and kind of take that, and with whoever, may approach me in the future, be like, these are the things that I want, and these are the things that I've done. What can you do that align with what I want,
Well, and first of all, it sounds like this guy just...
Yeah, there was a lot going on.
He lost control of his marriage, so he was going to try to control you instead.
Exactly, yes.
And certainly that's very easy to see as something that you wouldn't want to be a part of. However, I do want to push back on something you said, because you said that you're just kind of throwing darts, seeing what sticks, following your instinct, and all. And yes, that is true. Now, there are managers that want your perspectives.
Yeah.
There are managers that want somebody that's going to follow theirs.
Yeah. Both
can be true. But the idea that you're just throwing darts to see what sticks, I don't buy.
Yeah.
In this sense, if I look back at your discography, at your releases, there's not a real gap.
Yeah.
From when your first release dropped. I mean, you were real busy when things got quiet, but it's not as if you were busy because they got quiet, because you've released more since we all went back to work. So there's some strategy. You've got some intention attached to what you're doing. Now, writing different things, working on different projects. Yes, I understand creatively that you are more open, but I don't believe for a minute that you're kind of going, well, I'll try this and see what happens.
No, I totally know what you mean.
Because you've got plans that you follow somehow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And you're totally right. Like when I say, I guess like throwing darts, it's kind of like what you were saying, like I'm going to release here. I'm going to play this show here. I'm going to go to London. I'm going to do that, and kind of doing everything, I guess, but yeah, no, you're totally right. Like when it comes to a release strategy and kind of like schedule, I owe a lot to that, to like other artists and friends of mine who I've just kind of seen throughout the years and seen, I think back in like 2018, 2017 was kind of like the beginning of like the single game, where people would just start releasing singles. And I caught on to that, to just like what my friends were doing, people I knew in both Nashville and LA who I would write with. And I was inspired by that to see like, oh, cool, you don't have to release an album. Because before singles, I did release 2 albums. Neither one of them can be listened to anymore. And I would work with like publicists and all this stuff to gear up to release this one album on this like one day, but it would be like 12 songs, right? That I would just kind of push, and then it would be over. And then like those 12 songs, I wasn't really giving attention to all of them,
Right.
And especially like as an independent artist, if you're obviously like Taylor Swift, I'm going to go listen to her whole album, Christie Huff, nobody, like, not to even put myself down, there's other bigger artists who I wouldn't go listen to their whole album. I want pieces of them at a time, just because, especially nowadays with TikTok and like, oh man, this 10-second video is too long, things like that. It's just longer. So when I got kind of caught wind to all of the work that I put into these albums, and obviously I was also younger and hadn't been doing this that long, and didn't really know, like, you learn strategy along the way.
Yeah, but that's not about youth.
Yeah.
That's about the industry.
That's true. And the industry's changed.
Because I was on the road with Tim McGraw when Taylor Swift's Tim McGraw came out.
Yeah.
Nobody would have been standing in line to listen to the whole album from Taylor Swift because they didn't know who she was.
Yeah.
And you were releasing albums. We were buying CDs in stores.
Yeah.
So your entry into the game was also in a different...
What it was like. Yeah.
It's a different environment.
Yes.
Now, one of the things that I heard, and I forget where I heard it, but you were so lucky to hear this. I did not hear this. I did not even play in my first band until after I got out of college. But I heard you talking about musical things that you did in high school.
Yeah.
And you, because you started your singles game, you're releasing things pretty much right out of high school.
Yeah.
And you quoted, I can't remember the quote, but you were talking about how a teacher in high school told you to write your own material.
Yes.
And I was so jealous of that.
Yeah.
Because when I'm in piano lessons in high school, I'm learning all the classical stuff, and I'm not playing with GarageBand. It didn't exist.
Yeah.
I'm using cassette decks to record on one and then play it back in the other and sing against it. So pop music, culturally relevant music wasn't really a part of the conversation.
Yeah.
So your high school teacher says, write your own music. It appears that you went, okay. Yeah. Went home and did it. Like immediately.
Yes. Well, yeah, because I was going to this vocal teacher in high school, and we were, always singing covers, and she was like, I was like, yeah, I want to be a singer, like the typical, and she was like, well, if you want to be a singer, she's like, anybody can sing, but like, if you want to really make it in this industry, you need to be able to write and sing your own songs. And that really stuck with me because, and too, I started doing my own research because I was like, I loved, when I was first growing up, I loved like Michelle Branch and like, Carrie Underwood and like Taylor Swift. And then I came to find out like, oh, whoa, Michelle Branch writes her own songs. Taylor Swift, as we all know, like writes her own songs.
Sure.
And that really inspired me. And two, it inspired me, I think I was in a way like lucky to grow up in the era of Taylor Swift. She's like a couple years older than me, to be writing about songs and about things that were happening in my life. So it kind of gave me the okay, because I started writing, I think I wrote my first song in 8th grade.
Okay.
I'm like, oh, I can write about my crush in math class, So that's where it began. And then as you keep on writing, and then I started taking guitar lessons, because at first I did just start with like the garage band and using like the loops and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then my dad got like our cute neighbor boy who was a couple years older than me, he played guitar. He hired him to come over every day in the summer.
Just for the record,
yeah,
cute came before guitar.
My dad knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
He got the neighbor boy who was probably like 3 years older than me.
Yeah.
And very cute. We're like, oh my gosh, Skylar's coming over, and we're gonna like, me and my little sister, he would come over like every day in the summer. For like an hour and just like teach us chords, So every day when he was coming back over, I was like, okay, I can't like look like I didn't listen to what he taught us yesterday. I have to be good at, So that really helped too, an incentive.
Right.
So, so once I started learning to play just a couple of chords, then I was like, oh, cool. Like I can, put G, C, D together and it creates something.
Right.
So then I started just, experimenting, writing songs and things like that, So thanks, Skylar. You helped me a lot. I still use GCD and K4 for all my songs.
Skylar comes through.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, we just need to remember Skylar when we start winning awards.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so you were talking about Michelle Branch. Mm-hmm. Certainly Taylor,
Mm-hmm.
Others, Carrie a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I have heard you address
Mm-hmm.
or defend is, the fact that, is your music country music? Is
Yeah.
it not country? Is it pop music? Blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah, 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 blah. And I realized there is a point where there's a lack of authenticity in certain kinds of music. When you take a country song that's on country radio and you put a loop in it because you want to get it on a pop playlist to get traffic.
Totally, yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
I get that. But the idea that, I don't know how you want to address this, but I just know that I was listening to you kind of defend what your music, what you're doing musically. And I'm thinking, you know what? Michelle Branch, the stuff that she did with the Wreckers, which was on country radio, is not that far from what she did that was on pop radio.
Totally. Yeah.
Darius Rucker, his stuff is not, so different from what he did with Hootie and the Blowfish.
Yeah.
And, certainly Taylor is, everybody will acknowledge that Taylor Swift is a pop artist now.
Yes. Yeah.
But when she started, which was, you're going to know better than I am, but I want to say Highway Don't Care was her last country radio song.
Yeah.
And then after that was Shake It Off.
Yes. Yeah.
Country radio was not real quick to let her go because they wanted to be able to say, look at how popular country radio is.
Exactly. Yeah.
And take her numbers away, it changes. So all of that being said, how does that impact your creative process? Do you really think about it that much? Do you worry about it? Why can everybody else just create their stuff and you've got to defend yourself?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, and you bring up a good point, like country, what I grew up as, what I called country was Taylor Swift. I grew up in the era when, when Tim McGraw came out, Picture to Burn. So I just started writing songs. And one of my first songs that I wrote was actually called Soldier Song. And, some people could be like, and I wrote like a story. I created basically a story. And that's where it began for me as far as country goes. The storytelling aspect of country music. Now that's shifted as I've gotten older. And now when I go and I sit down and I write a song, it's kind of funny. Like you bring up like, oh, like this song gets on, I'm going to put a loop in so it gets on the pop playlists. When I was first recording, I recorded my first 2 albums in Nashville. So I worked with a Nashville producer. So it sounded more country anyway, because that's who I worked with. And then, I got to a point, when I started to release my singles where I was like, I'm tired of like playing this quote unquote game. Cause I was trying to I've made myself be country all this time. And I've kind of catered to that for so long. I just want to release and write what I want to write now without wearing a hat, because I have gotten pushback in the past about like, well, you're not country and things like that. So I just started to release songs that I like. And it's funny because the very first song that I started in my single release game, I thought it was pop. When I like submitted it to Spotify playlist, it was pop. And then the head of country music at Spotify found it and then put it on all these country playlists and things like that.
Right.
And then I was kind of shot back into the stratosphere of like country, So now I'm just trying to, I take influence, from everything and everywhere around me. And I also love to experiment. So that's why I call myself country pop, I guess, so I'm like, I'm country and pop, but, as far as writing goes, now I just write things that I want to write and what I like, how I like how it sounds, basically.
Well, and what do I know? I don't know anything. I mean,
neither do I.
But you said you would try to cater to things, and I would argue that you can't.
Yeah.
You can.
No. Yeah.
I mean, it's not possible.
Yeah.
I mean, you can listen to a radio DJ and he can say, I would play you on my station if you put a fiddle on there.
Yeah.
But the thing is, if it's successful,
yeah.
they're going to take ownership of it.
Totally. That's everything,
we had,
right? Yeah.
I remember when, you said something to somebody, you wanted to open for Faith Hill. Mm-hmm. And I remember when the Cry album came out for Faith Hill, all this is it going to be country enough? Ooh, is it?
Oh, wow.
They even started out, they were talking about how it's got some gospel influence and all this. They were already getting ready for pushback.
Yeah.
Huge. It was a very successful record. A few years after that, what was the song? Who says you can't go home? Bon Jovi did it with Jennifer Nettles from Sugarland.
Yeah. I love
right?
Sugarland too. Yeah.
Okay. It won a Grammy for Best Country Collaboration and a People's Choice Award for Best Rock Performance.
Oh my God.
And
that's so funny.
And nobody was saying, well, can we nominate it? Is it country?
Yeah.
They weren't doing that. They were saying, hey, it's big.
It's a great song.
If we put them on the show, they'll watch us too.
Yeah.
They didn't do that. So you can't can't make the right call to cater it. So just
shifting all the time.
Create your stuff.
Yes.
Just create your stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I have to ask you this.
Okay.
And I feel like I'm all over the place, but you...
I'm all over the place too, so don't worry.
It's okay. You brought up Taylor Swift. And we talked about Highway Don't Care.
Yes.
Which I know you write a lot of stuff by yourself.
Yes.
You did not write by yourself Lovish.
Yes, I know. I was going to talk. Yeah.
And you've got so much stuff. I know it's back there, but there has to have been, oh my gosh, I'm writing with one of the guys that wrote Highway Don't Care.
Yes.
For
Tim McGraw and Taylor Swift.
Right, which is Mark Irwin.
Yes,
who's
Mark
a friend.
Irwin. Yes.
Right. Talk about that, because I have to assume that was a little nerve-wracking.
Oh my gosh. Yes. It was like so exciting when I found out that I was going to be able to get in the room with him. And we talked about it. I was like, oh my gosh, like I love Highway Don't Care. I remember like in high school, like driving down, like with my windows rolled down on the freeway, listening to it and being in that room. I was definitely nervous, but I was also, you come prepared, right? Like, I came.
Okay, so you come prepared.
Yes.
So what does that mean for you? What is coming prepared?
Yeah. Well, coming prepared, especially for this, right? I think I was like the most prepared I have ever been.
Right.
I came with probably like 3 or 4 ideas. 2 of them I had like melodies, like song ideas, like melodies and some lyrics ready to go because, you know, when you come in, like I'll admit, like I don't want to look like I don't know what I'm doing. You know, I want to.
And what you're talking about is when you come into a co-write, when you're getting ready to sit down with somebody else as a writer, you don't want to be empty-handed, just relying on them to have the ideas. You want to have some ready too.
Exactly.
Okay.
And, you know, you never know. I mean, sometimes you don't even use those ideas, which actually happened in our case. But I will say coming in with those ideas led to conversations that led to the idea that we ended up writing about. So, you know, everything works out the way that it's meant to. I came in with an idea at first, and it was, I can't even remember it now, but I had like a melody, and it was called Positive Vibe. I think I had like a melody and like some lyrics, and I was like, yeah, like I don't know, maybe something like this would be cool. And it was funny because they were like, well, this is great, but like you could finish that. Let's do something, you know, that like we can do together, which was awesome. I was like, okay, great. Like, let's start talking. And they, cause I wrote Love-ish, which is the song that we ended up writing, with Mark Irwin and then Aaron, I can never say his last name. Esuis. Yeah. And we were just talking, they're like, yeah, tell me about your life. And, I started talking about like this guy I was like kind of singing, and I'm like, it's not love, but it's like love-ish. And then Aaron's like, wait, what did you say? I'm like, love-ish. And he's like, that's a cool like idea. Right. So yeah, then we, you know, just started making the track. We wrote the track because we were with Aaron, and he kind of started with something, and then us 3 just, you know, kind of created the song, what ended up being Love-ish. And I was so excited coming out of the room because, you know, you never know. Like, you could be in a room with somebody and just the vibes could be off, you know, which I really didn't want. I wanted everything to feel easy. But then also, you know, I was nervous because I wanted them to think that, like, who's this girl? Like, why should she be here, you know, in the room with me, you know? So
how did you wind up in the room with them?
Yeah, well, so this was during the time when I was doing really well on Spotify, and John Marks, who is still a great mentor of mine, he reached out to another like manager friend that he knew just to connect me, like, you know, go to coffee with this person, just like more people you know in the industry, basically. Right. So George Corey, with AAA Management, like we met for coffee. I actually flew out to Austin and like met up with him, and he, you know, I was like, yeah, I go back and forth between like LA and Nashville. I'm always looking for like collaborators and writers, and he knew Mark and Aaron, and he was like, well, if I can set up a write with like these 2 guys that I know, and I think that they could, you know, elevate your stuff, and you know, would you be interested? And I was like, yeah. So that's, you know, that's how I got in to the room with them, and I've since written a couple more songs with Aaron, and yeah, it's been good, you know. So, but yeah, that's another thing. It's like you just like never know what's going to be the thing that gives you an opportunity, you know. So that's why I'm like, if I hadn't released Urban Love, which is a song that I thought was a pop song, I would have never gotten into the room with Mark Irwin, who is a hit country singer, you know? Right. It's, yeah, like everything works out for a reason.
Well, I when I saw that you'd written that with Mark, I was, because I see Mark periodically here in Nashville, and I was like, I'm going to have to find out how that one happened for sure. Yeah. And I knew that the Taylor thing had to have you on pins and needles as you're sitting there.
Yeah, no, I was so excited.
Well, I want to ask you about another part of your Spotify journey. Before we do that, I want to share with everybody a little piece from Troy Castellano. He's got a project called Instruments for Education. He gathers up instruments for schools that don't have music budgets, students that don't have instruments to play, so we can get them in their hands, pass the music on. So we're going to share that, and then I'm going to ask you about your Spotify adventure.
Good.
Okay.
Hey, Troy Castellano here from Instruments for Education. We're at one of our first stops here today on a Friday. We're delivering some tambourines and some shakers for an elementary school classroom. We're at Liberty Elementary School. Hey guys, I'm Troy Castellano. We started Instruments for Education as a way to put instruments into the hands of kids. Sometimes we donate directly to students, sometimes to teachers, and sometimes to full classrooms in their schools. We're based out of Nashville, Tennessee, and we service the Middle Tennessee area. Since we started, we've reached over 100 schools and donated over 500 instruments. If you'd like to make a request for an instrument, or you have an instrument to donate, or would like to contribute financially, visit our website at instrumentsforeducation.org. Thanks for supporting us, and thanks for helping keep music alive.
So you were mentioning your Spotify activity kind of spurring some of that initial meeting. Now, looking at your numbers, I would have expected you to mention black and white. Black or white?
Black and white.
Black and white.
Yes.
Just because it seemed to really catch a wave. It got a lot of traffic.
Yeah. Yes.
You know, in your world, I'm assuming that's kind of one of your hits.
Oh, for sure.
Because it's got so much more traffic than everything else.
Yeah.
Is it hard to second guess yourself, question yourself, because you're trying to write the next black and white? Why can't I get in that traffic zone again with this one? And why did that one work and not this one? Or do you just write what you write?
No, even with black and white. Like, I just write what I write. With black and white, when I wrote that song alone, and I took it in. It was a 7-minute song when I initially wrote it. I took it into my producer, and that was when I decided, like, I don't care. I just want to write what I feel, and I don't care if it's a 7-minute song. I want to, like, I love the song. I just want to release it. My producer's like, hold up, like, you got something here. Let's cut it. And I was like, that's my baby. Like, I can't cut like, every word matters,
Sure.
And he's like, no, like, I think we have, something that could be more of a, not a hit, but like, like, that's the goal, right? We all want to write a hit, right? So he was like, let's cut it. So we like cut half the song, and that like destroyed me for a second. And then I was like, it's okay, I got to think of this in a commercial way, And when I released it, Urban Love was the first song that started getting playlisted for me, which I released right before Black and White. And Black and White was the second song of like the beginning of my single journey. So I released Black and White, and first of all,
now when you say getting playlisted, are you talking about specifically some of the Spotify editorial playlists?
Editorial playlists.
Okay.
Yes.
Not just Joe Schmo adding it to his friends and family.
Yes.
Because those generate a lot more traffic than some of the other playlists.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Like the goal, especially as an independent artist, is to get on those Spotify, Apple Music, curated playlists, because you will be shot into the audience of people that you don't know, not just your mom,
Right.
So Black and White came out, and it started getting on the same playlists as Urban Love, and then it got on Hot Country, which, is like the biggest country playlist on Spotify at least. And it was on there for a month, and and it's so funny because if you would have asked me, like, do you think this song is going to be like your hit song? I would have, you never know what's going to be a hit song, but I would have never guessed that a ballad would be the song, because everybody's like, oh, come on, fun and sexy, upbeat, and here I am, my emotional breakup song is the one, to, reach an audience that I could have never imagined reaching.
Right.
And what that taught me was, because Black and White, I mean, I was going through it, a breakup during that time. I wrote a lot of songs during that time. And that was a very therapeutic song for me to write. And that, to me, that's what it was. I did not think when I was writing Black and White about anything other than what I was feeling in that moment. And I was using, my love for music as my therapy. And what that taught me is people connect to things that you connect to. And all of my songs, I've had a couple songs now get over 1 million streams. All of those ones that have done the best are all songs that I wrote because I had to write it. Not because I was like, okay, guys, I'm here. I need to write a song like this because that's what I need on my roster. No, all of the songs that have done the best for me are the songs that I was connected to, and that whether they did well or not, I loved the song. So that's kind of been, a learning experience for me as time has gone on, to just write what you want and are connected to and release what you're connected to. So, yeah.
Well, you must feel a lot because you write a lot of stuff.
I do. Yeah. So many emotions. My fiance always teases me because I'm like, I just have so many emotions. So now he's always says that. Yeah.
Well, you were talking about not having a team.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of your songs have videos attached to them.
Mm-hmm.
Do you put together a team for your
Yes.
videos? Are those all of your ideas? Do you do all your own video concepts, video treatments, all of that? Or
So, yes. And when I say you don't have a team, I mean I don't have, a manager, somebody figuring things out, basically. I have an amazing group of people, like musicians, producers, music video, videographers, photographers, people like that I've come to know throughout the years and trust and take in,
Right.
So yeah, for my videos, it works both ways. I've worked with a couple of different people, which is a fun thing about being quote unquote independent, is that I can, work with different people and collaborate.
Mm-hmm.
And some of my videos I have one video. Well, I don't know. They're all. Some have been with a family friend, and then some have been with just people I know in LA. And usually, how it works, I show them the song. Sometimes I do have a story idea that I come with. In the pandemic, for instance, I filmed maybe 3 or 4 music videos, and they were my friends who were, I live in LA, so they were all in the film industry, shut down in the pandemic. Right. None of us were doing anything, and one of my friends came to me and was like, "I'm so bored. Let's you're releasing music. Let's film a video."
Sure.
And I was like, "Yeah, hell yeah! Let's do it." So that one, this one's for Gold Summer. My friend kind of wrote a screenplay, of sorts for the video.
Right.
And then we went out and did those shots. And then same thing, I had actually another group of friends who were like, I want to do a video for you. And they did palm reader in black and white stripped, or black and white, but I released black and white stripped for the anniversary of it. So to kind of go along with the music video release. And palm reader was a really, really fun video to make because I was doing it with friends. I've done the whole hiring thing as well, which is great. But there's something about sitting down with your friends and listening to the song and creating, the storyline together.
Sure.
And not feeling and not that everybody I've worked with and hired over the years does a great job too, but it's a different thing, right? Where it's yeah, this is what I want. What do you think? Da da da. This we're if I release it, we'll see. I don't know. It's kind of just for fun, And,
and after you make it,
yeah,
you still get to be excited about the thing you made with your friends.
Exactly.
I mean, we did, when we started this podcast, I have a friend that's helping us do the videos for the songs.
Yeah.
I have a friend that I tour with that's helping me record the interviews. It's all been built. I mean, I'm friends with Turk. It's all so before the success or failure of it, the exposure of it ever entered into the conversation.
So you're just excited
Look
about
at this thing we made.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that was what was so fun. It's usually, hiring people is great too, and I know I'll do it again, and
Right.
will be great. But then it's usually like me pushing it. When I did it like with my friends, we're all like, you send it to your parents, I'll send it to my parents, because we all created this thing together that was
Right.
fun. And we're like, oh, remember that day we did this too, when we got this shot and we got ice cream, and it just became a big thing. So yeah, there's been a couple different ways that I've done videos, but the best way was, like working with friends is always the best. Same thing with writing music too,
Sure.
So yeah.
Well, okay, so there's one of your videos that I wanted to ask you about.
Okay.
Because I heard you make mention of this somewhere, and we'll come back around to the real issue with that. But I went back to see what your first video was.
Okay. I wonder which one that was.
I believe it is you having written a song for your mission trip to India.
Oh my gosh, yes. Oh,
Right?
wow, yeah.
Which I'm assuming,
Yeah.
I heard you mention something about a gap year after high school, and I'm wondering if that was what that was.
That's so yeah. So I did go to India like the summer after high school.
Okay.
And I went there with my family, and we did some volunteer work, and
Okay.
and because my parents are both doctors and
What kind of doctors?
gynecologists.
Okay.
Yeah. So so they were doing, like gynecology work, and then me and my sisters were we were working in like a school where we were like teaching English, and just really like our whole job really was just like love the kids, and that was we went with this organization called Global Volunteers, and
Okay.
that's who I wrote that song. I wrote the song, and then we kind of collaborated, and they sent me pictures, and like
Right.
they used it for
Because it's kind of a slideshow from the trip or something.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's a show from the trip, and then I sang at they had a gala, so I
Okay.
sang the song that I wrote, and volunteer work has been like a huge part of my childhood because my parents are both doctors, and then my mom especially is really passionate about just like helping other people, and then specifically people in third world countries.
Okay.
So every summer, probably from the time since I was like 12, we would go to a different country and do volunteer work.
Okay.
So that, and then that summer, the year after I graduated high school, is when we went to India. But my first place, I went to Ecuador, and then we went to Peru, and then we
Right.
went to Ghana. And it's a really great way to travel the world because, I've definitely done the whole, like, I'm going to go stay at this hotel and this. But for
Right,
these,
right.
we were staying, in not the best, like situations sometimes, but we were staying like with the people and getting to know the people. And it really makes you, just see the world and see that like, we don't really have, we're not so different after all,
Right.
So that's been like a huge thing in my life. And my parents, want to continue. That's what they've instilled in me is just like, love for service and traveling and things like that. So
Sure.
when I wrote that song, that was kind of what that was all about. So yeah.
Well, and I did not know about all the
Yeah.
other countries that you visited,
Yeah.
but it does kind of explain a lot for me, just because when I think of you, well, first of all, when you've got a bunch of band boys complaining about the state of your
Oh my
hotel,
gosh. Totally.
and
yes.
and you're like, let me tell you about the place I stayed in Ghana.
Really?
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
Really. Because I'm like the very first tour I ever went on, we were staying, it's a budget. I'm on a budget, right?
Sure.
And we were staying in like not the best places or whatever, but you're exactly right. I'm like, I've been in worse situations.
Right.
And I'm like, at least we have running water here.
Yeah.
At least there's like air conditioning, and we're not in humidity and 100 degrees and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
So, it definitely makes you, even when I'm like getting down on myself about like, oh, I want to be here in my career. It's like, hey, the fact that I'm even able to do this and that's
Right.
even an option for me, that's like, I've made it
Right.
in and of itself. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So it changes your perspective. And every year, it's so funny though, like how easy it is to forget what you've seen. Because,
Right.
you know, especially when I was like, every summer we were going to these different countries and doing this volunteer work. Every year I was like reminded. I'm like, oh yeah, this is, everything's fine. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So,
Well,
yeah.
and also when you think about trying to move your career forward, when you think about you going by yourself to play the Freedom Jam,
Yeah.
and so many people would think, oh, do you have a booking agent? Oh, do you have somebody to manage your meet and greet? Oh,
Yeah.
do you? And you're like, look, I know what it's like to go through customs. I know what it's
Totally.
like to go through other countries.
Yeah.
I know what it's like to have a passport, to lose your passport,
Oh
to
my
get
gosh,
hung up.
totally.
I've done all
Yeah.
these things. Me getting
I can do
myself
it.
and my guitar to
Totally.
this gig,
Yes.
I got this.
No, yeah, you totally have a point. I mean, it's like once you've kind of like been out in those situations, and man, I just went through that passport situation of having to renew it. It's a pain.
Right.
But yeah, then it's like, okay, I can fly into Missouri, like St. Louis, which is a well-populated, you know, relatively safe city, you know, and I can drive myself in
Sure.
this nice car that I have. If I need to pull over and ask for help, like somebody will help me, you
Right.
know? It's, yeah, totally. I'm like,
Now,
It's fine.
can you drive on the other side of the road when
Oh my
you
God.
are touring in London?
no. Luckily,
I've not done that.
I know.
but-
I have not. Luckily,
Okay.
when we're there, we just take the tube.
Okay.
So
Okay.
the underground. I suck at accents, so that was my attempt at a British accent. So yeah, luckily, or we just take Ubers. So
Yeah.
I'll let that the driving on the other side of the road to the pros.
Okay. Okay. One of the things that we are doing, and this was the first thing I dropped on you when we met at the Freedom Jam, I was like, okay, if you're going to be in Nashville, what do you
Yeah.
think of this?
Yeah.
You know, your songs are all, you know, produced in various ways. You've got some of the more Americana things. You've got the pop things. For this purpose, we're doing things that are basically just piano vocal arrangements, which we were able to do the last time you were in Nashville.
Yeah.
So we filmed that. You were kind enough to show up and trust me.
Yeah. Turned out great.
As an unknown.
Yeah.
Um,
In a warehouse in the middle of the night. Come on,
yeah,
are you kidding?
yeah. Again, you've been to
Yeah,
other
yeah.
countries. So,
Yeah. I'm like, yeah, it's fine.
So we've got that. We're going to share that. And then I want you to tell us about the song that we played and why we played it.
Sounds good.
So here is Cologne.
It's not that I'm needy, it's just that I am needing something that lingers when you're gone. Oh, that fresh, clean smell brings me back to last night's memory of you holding on to me till dawn. The trace of you starts to fade away, so come over, come over. I got the house alone. Get closer to me. You should know you need a show up at my door. You said it's gone cold. Yeah, baby, every time you go, I miss the smell of your cologne. Oh, I miss the smell of your cologne. Oh, you get me, it's crazy. Yeah, we're on the same wavelength, and I know you're feeling this way too. There's no reason not to close this distance and for you're the cloud on my room. Could talk on the phone, but let's don't. Just come over, come over. I got the house alone. Get closer to me. You should know you need a show up at my door. Your scent's gone cold. Yeah, baby, every time you go, I miss the smell of your cologne. Oh, I miss the smell of your cologne. Yeah. It's like you're on your way, before you know it, you're leaving my place. Time always slips away, so you know that I'm gonna say, yeah. Come over, come over. I got the house alone. Get closer to me. You should know you need a show up at my door. Your scent's gone cold. Yeah, baby, every time you go, I miss the smell of your, I miss the smell of your cologne. I miss the smell of your cologne. I miss the smell of your cologne, baby. The smell of your cologne.
So that is Cologne.
Mm-hmm.
Well done,
Thank
my dear.
you too.
Why did we do that?
Yes. Well, at the time, Cologne was like my latest single. And what
Okay.
was so cool, I think about like the version that you all just heard, is that it's a completely kind of, different version from the version that I have out everywhere.
Right.
To bring piano in, it's rare, super rare that I ever do, I'll do like an acoustic with my guitar version,
Right.
but never piano. So I think that you get a different emotion. And when you kind of like strip it back, and especially with piano, it's just like a very like delicate sound.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited about my song Cologne. I wrote it with Mary Cutter,
Right.
who's a writer here in town. Shout out to Mary. She's awesome.
Yeah.
She's such a hoot. Like getting together with her, it's always so fun. And we actually wrote the song during the pandemic via Zoom.
Okay.
So
Wow.
yeah, it's crazy. I brought that idea to her at the time.
Now, did you know her already?
Yes,
at that
yeah.
time?
We've
Okay.
known each other a couple years now,
Okay.
and every time I'm out here, we try and write and everything. So we've
Yeah.
written a couple songs, and then this one I really love. I just think it's a fun song, and I wrote it. Yeah, like I came to her with the idea, and I wrote down, as songwriters do, we all have the list of ideas in our phones, right?
Right,
And
right.
I had the idea Cologne written down, and I at the time, was like doing my like dating. I was dating. I wasn't yet with my now fiance.
Okay.
And at the time, I was like seeing this guy, and I was like, oh, I think I like him. And he had a very strong cologne smell, and every time he came, I would have that smell like around me, like it would be like, it would still be in my house for the next couple of days. So then
Right.
I was like, man, I don't know if I miss the smell or just miss him, but like I wanted to come back over. And so I was talking to her about that because, we came together and we're talking about what we should write about.
Yeah.
And then I started talking to her about this, and I came a little bit with like la da da la da, like come over to her, and I'm like, yeah, but I don't know like where I'm gonna take it. And then we just, Mary's awesome, and she took everything that I was saying, and we wrote what is now Cologne. So
Right.
it's just like a fun song. Anybody who's like dating, I'm sure can relate. So just that excuse, they're like, I miss the smell of your cologne. Like, come back,
Sure,
So,
sure.
so
Well, and
so-
it was so fun when you brought that in, just because there's so many people we don't know in this industry.
Mhm.
But then again, you're friends with Gabrielle.
I know.
Gabrielle and I have had coffee.
Yeah.
I'm friends with Mary.
Yeah.
So
I'm like,
it's,
you played
it's
with
like,
McGraw,
I was
I
like,
wrote with
really?
Mark
That's
Irwin. Like, it's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah.
So, well, I thought
a
it was
small
cool.
town.
I thought it was very cool. I love that we got to do that. I didn't know how it was going to come off, but I think it came off really fun.
I think it sounds
So-
great. I'm so excited.
So everybody needs to let us know if they agree.
Yes, go listen
It's
right
all
now.
out there.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about this, and because you talk about the third world countries, and you do all of that.
Yeah.
I know that you did your own podcast that was not so much about promoting your musical career,
Yes.
but for other reasons. And I don't know what you would want to share about that, but I would start with the question, of, and I think it applies in the music industry, how important is it, and what do you learn from having to struggle?
Yes. I have dyslexia, and, school did not come easy to me. I come from a family, like, my parents are doctors, my sisters are, really smart. My sister went to Duke, my sister's a nurse practitioner, my little sister's in medical school. So very, academia was a really big focus in my family.
Sure.
And then here I come along, and I'm 6 and like can't read. And my mom's like, what is going on? Like, I have 2 older sisters, a little sister who is more ahead, than I am. And, then we come to find, I have dyslexia, and, I really credit me having dyslexia to just my work ethic, and then also even focusing on music at all. Because for me, growing up, where I got my self-esteem was through music.
Right.
I, learned I had this, quote unquote talent of singing.
Yeah.
And that's what I, would do because I was, when I was in 7th grade, I was placed in 6 special ed classes.
Okay.
And I was like, I came back after orientation and I was like, Dad, I can't be in this. Like,
Right.
I don't want to do this. Please let me be in like normal classes, the non-special education classes.
Okay, so I heard your dad talk about this in part, but I didn't understand this part of the story. You pushed back on it, but you did attend the classes long enough to know what it was going to be?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, I didn't get that part.
Yes, I was there, and I wasn't with my peers. I was, with other students who, also struggle with various different learning disabilities.
Right.
So not just dyslexia. And, I'm a very social person. I love to be around people, and I wanted to be with my peers. I knew it was going to be a struggle, and I also knew that there would be some pushback a little bit from the special ed department because it's harder.
Sure.
I ended up having what's called an IEP, which
means what?
An individualized educational proposal. So what that means for me is that I got extra time on tests.
Okay.
I got to go to a separate room for tests. I also got to I had basically no time limit to finish work.
Is this also, if you're dyslexic, is this where people start reading things to you so you can,
Yes.
is that a part of that?
Yes. So
Okay.
I would have tests read to me. I would have to get a book and get it on tape and things like that, to help me, they're called accommodations. And with these accommodations, it's like people with dyslexia, it's like, I'm not stupid. I just need the help that I need to
Right.
get to where I need to be. And in my podcast, a lot of people don't really understand what dyslexia is. And it's very hard to, what's the word I'm looking for? It's very hard to learn if somebody has dyslexia, because a lot of people, just think like, oh, they're lazy. They're not reading this and not doing this.
Well, I think you're talking about even with your folks being doctors.
Yeah.
They didn't recognize it initially.
No.
Wasn't there's a story about your dad thinking you're being cute, scribbling in a notebook,
Yeah.
and you're
Yes.
actually kind of
I think I'm writing.
Yeah.
I'm writing a story here.
yeah, and he's not connecting it
Yes.
to an obstacle.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
All
Yes.
right.
So it took a little time, and I think it helped that I did have siblings that they could,
Measure you against.
Yeah. So then they took me to, a psychologist that then, diagnosed me. That's the word I was looking for. Diagnosed me. And, I am lucky because I did have parents who had the means and the, ability to, take me to get diagnosed and then also get me tutors and things like that you need as somebody who has a learning disability.
Right.
So what I wanted to do, like in the pandemic, like dyslexia has shaped me in just like how I am as a person. Like, you know, you go back to like the struggle. I know what it's like to stay up all night studying for a test and fail it.
Right.
And that's not based on me being unprepared or anything. That's just based on how my brain works, you know? And when I compare it to music and that like, okay, I'm not just gonna like try out for The Voice and not get it and then quit, you know, I'm gonna keep on going because I know that sometimes things work out, sometimes things don't, but that doesn't, like that one thing not working out doesn't mean that music as a whole or like my success in school, success, because success can be measured by a lot of different things, doesn't mean that, you know, I won't still have success. You know, and in school, the ways that I found success was through music and student council and sports and things like that, you know. And with my podcast, you guys can go listen to it. It's called Determined to Dream. And in the podcast, I interview different people who also have dyslexia, as well as so when you have an IEP in high school, you have a special ed caretaker, so somebody who kind of oversees everything that you do. And I was very lucky, again, like with my Miss Strong, she was a very good teacher and made sure that I was getting the help that I needed.
And was she your IEP at that time?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So because
you interviewed her on one of the episodes,
yes,
right?
Yes, and she's incredible. And you know, the educational system, I have my own thoughts about it. Like, you know, especially with kids with learning, it's built in a way for you to succeed in this one way, you know?
Right.
And if you do struggle in different ways, unless you get the help that you need, you aren't going to succeed. Like, you know, so that was one thing that is really important to me, and is why I did my podcast, is because it's really important to me to spread awareness and for people to know a little bit more about like what dyslexia is and how it does affect people. Because if you were to give me a sentence, I could read it. What I struggle a lot with is comprehension. And it takes me, time and time again. And comprehension, even in listening, I struggle with as well. So, and everybody I interviewed, it was honestly a very comforting experience for me, because I was like, I'm not crazy. Like, you see things the way that I do. Like my aunt is also dyslexic, and she's like, I read something sometimes, and people are like, oh yeah, go back to this thing, you know, like in a class, like go back to like this part of the story. She's like, wait, that wasn't on my page. Like she just totally missed it, you know?
Right.
So, and I'm like, that's happened to me. So it was very comforting, and, you know, I just wanted to kind of spread awareness and kind of bring to attention when I was interviewing my parents too, of like how much, you know, again, like I'm a lucky person that my parents did help me. Like my mom stayed up every night with me with my schoolwork, helping me, and not everybody has that ability.
Right.
So I really feel for the people who don't have the support that I have, but still need support. And that's kind of what I wanted and want to spread awareness to. And especially in like the educational system, you know, like these kids, you know, who need help, like they should be able to get the help that they can get at school too.
Yeah.
Because the biggest thing that you need is an advocate.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was, and in music, it's helped me in, you know, I don't know, maybe my brain works this way and it makes it able so that I can write songs. Like, you know, you just never know. So, because that's another thing that people always ask me is, well, if you can't like read very well, like how do you write songs?
Right.
And it's just like a different thing. It's more like a story. I'm not looking at words, you know? Right. So, so it's I don't know, it's an interesting thing. I only know my brain.
Well, yeah. Well, and I mean, certainly not near this same kind of obstacle, but you know, when I was growing up with asthma, there were a lot of days that I couldn't go to school.
Yeah.
And we didn't have 1,000 TV channels and video games yet.
Yeah.
You didn't grow up through that, the dark ages.
The dark ages. I'm like, wait, you didn't have an iPad? No, kidding. I didn't grow up with the iPads either.
But there was a lot of time where it's like, I can't do these other things, but I can sit at the piano and still breathe.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And in fact, that was one of the things you said. You talked about how your struggle with dyslexia, and you kind of described it, how it shaped your temperament.
Yeah.
Because I would see the same thing, just in that it kind of keeps me low key, because
Totally.
when I was having an asthma attack, if I was low key, I didn't tighten up the same way.
Interesting.
So now if things get tense,
you're just low key. You've learned.
well,
Yeah.
more so than I might be otherwise. So, the one thing I would kind of argue, that you said, you were talking about the educational system, and I agree with what you're talking about, the educational system, but it's no different than the music industry.
Yeah.
Somebody, some person has to see it differently.
Exactly.
Some person, whether it's John Marks at Spotify,
exactly,
or your teacher.
Well, and that's what's so funny. It's a good comparison. John Marks was almost like my teacher in school, who like saw my potential and helped me. You know what I mean? So that's what you need, right? Yeah.
Well, when the next time you sit down and you're pushing yourself out there for all these festivals and stuff, make sure that you're sending your podcast to some of these dyslexia advocacy people that are like looking for content that they get tired of listening to a doctor and having a country singer.
Yeah, exactly.
That
that's true though.
That can connect to that. They may not have reason to stumble onto it.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
So
that's a good idea.
You had said before we went to the break that you had something for me.
Yes.
Okay.
So now I'm going to put my interviewer hat on, and you're going to be interviewed.
Okay. What was that?
So we've talked a lot about kind of, I guess, like putting down like the fourth wall. I've talked about like how I get shows. You've played with some amazing artists like Tim McGraw. How, and I work with different musicians, and I've seen just like the hard work that they've done to like kind of get to know people to play with and everything like that, based off of, how amazingly talented they are. But then, it's the music industry. It's all about like networking and getting your foot in the door with different people. How did that situation and like opportunity like come about, and like what shaped your, I guess, like your journey to play with these amazing artists?
Well, I think that it's, one of the mistakes that I think that is made with networking is that people try to maintain connections with everybody just in case there's an opportunity with anybody. And they mistake the fact that that they really need to find the people they vibe with, they roll with. So if you try to present what this person wants to see and then present what that person wants to see, it's going to fall apart because you can't maintain that. So in Tim's case, when I had the opportunity to audition for them, the first thing I did was, they asked me to audition. I encouraged them to come hear me play with a local band that I was playing with.
Oh, nice.
And we were already rehearsed.
Yeah. That
way, they would not only hear me perform, but also see me perform. Because I have a kind of style that I perform with. I can change it, but they can see it rehearsed, loose, not thinking.
Yeah.
And I found out recently, in fact, that when they came out to hear me, I didn't know they were there.
Oh, no way.
Which actually I prefer.
Yeah.
Because
then it's not an audition, it's still a show.
Right, right. Yeah. And it lets me know that I'm showing them, if left to my own devices, this is what I'm going to do. I'm on the road now with Chris Cagle, who had a bunch of hit records when I was out with Tim. And he opened for us one show.
Oh, no way. Okay.
Back in the day. He recently unretired, went back on the road about a year ago, called me to go back on the road with him based on the interaction that we had when he opened up for us that one time.
Wow.
And he had seen us, and he and I had spoken and interacted. So it wasn't based on me trying to network with everybody.
Yeah.
And me trying to be whatever you want and be whatever he wants and be whatever they want. It was me just kind of saying, this is what I'm going to bring to the table. If you want something different, we can talk about it. but this is what I bring to the table that somebody else doesn't.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's so much easier to, your dad talked about that in his podcast interview, where it's like, you can try to be everything, or you can try to forget what exactly he said. You can try to improve every skill or develop every skill.
Yeah.
Or you can kind of say, you know what? These are my strengths.
Yeah.
I'm going to double down on those. And that's kind of what I tried to do. That way I'm able to, bring in what somebody else might not, because I'm the one that can.
Yeah.
And everybody won't want to work with me.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
That's okay. Yeah.
Because I got Christie Huff.
Yeah, exactly.
So there you go.
Yeah. That's amazing. After one show that he opened up for you guys, and that interaction, like now you're on tour with Chris. That's awesome.
Well, it was, they had called me about playing. And as opposed to calling someone that's a complete unknown.
Yeah.
They were calling me knowing that I had some level of experience. I had been in certain places where they knew I behaved.
Yeah.
And it was somebody that he had met, so at least he had a first impression.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it was a slam dunk,
Yeah.
but we weren't starting from scratch.
That's good. Yeah.
So, yeah. And I'll get to go do that this weekend.
I know. I'm like,
well, you get to go do yours.
I know. I'm like, well, see you on the road. Maybe we'll pass.
Yep. Well, we have passed, so I'm looking forward to passing again.
Me too.
Next time I know I'm at least ready for one song.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, come on, get on.
I'll be ready. I'll be ready.
Fun. Yeah.
You're going to have a lot more stuff coming out, I know, because you're creating and creating and creating. Make sure and let everybody know how to find you, where you are, right over here.
Right there. Okay, cool.
Yep.
Yes. Well, guys, again, my name is Christie Huff. You can find me just on my website, christiehuff.com, or anywhere. I'm on every social media platform, Christie Huff Music. And I'm releasing a new song actually this Friday. So People Pleaser Stripped. So yeah, go listen. Thanks so much for having me. It's been so much fun.
Thank you.
I love conversations like this, and like super well prepared. I'm like, man, you're putting me on the spot.
Oh no. I just wanted to know more.
Yeah.
Now we've shared the more with everybody
now we shared.
else.
I'm like, and Freedom Jam. I mean, that we would have never done this if not for Freedom Jam.
Yep.
So great.
Yep.
Thanks, Brian.
And thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Well, guys, that wraps it up for our interview with Christie Huff. Christie has a brand new single, People Pleaser, so check that out along with all of her music. And also look into her podcast. Again, that's called Determined to Dream. It's a conversation about her experience with dyslexia. I very much appreciate the fact that she hasn't let it get in her way, and that she's being so open and trying to share what she's learned to help others in similar situations. So thank you, Christie, for that and for making the time for the visit. Our video for Cologne was filmed and edited by Randy Allen, audio captured by Jonathan Warren, engineered and mixed by Tommy Leland, and Jonathan helped us capture the interview as well. Turk McNamara, thank you for leaving the lights on and the door open at Turk's Lounge. Glad to be back there. And thanks for keeping Nashville how it used to be. If you've got any thoughts about the podcast, you can email us at jeff@mcmahononkeys.com. Certainly like and subscribe so you don't miss anything. And until next time, this is McMahon on Keys.